Hey, idiot, did you turn on the camera? Pay attention, man, turn on that camera. Chill out, dude, calm down, I'm turning it on. Hello, my subscribers, this is a new video on our channel, and we are the No Strategy channel. I'm Kong Dokyul, a rank B adventurer and also a METUBER. In today's video, I'm going to show you a tutorial on how to attack a rank C monster called Arachne. The first thing you need to know is that they move in groups and look a lot like spiders. Actually, they could be considered spiders, but obviously you've noticed that these spiders are quite different from the ones on Earth. They don't attack immediately. Instead, they spit webs. Okay, let me get back to my first-person, third-person narrator voice because I'm not really capturing this guy's vibe. As he mentioned they wouldn't attack, suddenly they started screeching. This made it clear that their tutorial wasn't very accurate. Suddenly, one of the arachnids started attacking. It aimed specifically at the camera, but Kong managed to defend it. He asked the cameraman what he was doing, telling him to drop the camera and start fighting. However, the cameraman, who was also the editor, named Myung Si-woo, declared he couldn't fight. With this statement, the situation began to worsen. The reason was simple. The original fighting style of the arachnids wasn't to fight individually, but to hunt. They first immobilized their opponent with venom and then kill them. That's why they were so shocked by this sudden situation. Along with Myung's declaration, Kong got even more nervous. Then he said, "We'll talk later, Myung Si-woo. When my mom said that, man, it was like a shot and a bomb. And if Kong was like my mom, Myung was in big trouble. You could tell the guy was strong just by seeing him break the spiders in half so easily. It was so easy for him that he quickly finished the job." At that moment, the handsome face he showed at the beginning of the video disappeared. Then he declared, "What the hell is this? The arachnids are supposed to spit webs first." And Myung started reflecting in his mind. This arachnid attack would be their last resort against their prey. But this changes if they are in a desperate situation. While thinking about this, Kong caught his attention, snapping him out of his hesitation. He approached, grabbing Myung by the collar, wondering if this was how he planned to handle things. Myung even tried to apologize. However, Kong shouted, "Is that all you have to say? I almost died because of you." With that, he punched Myung right in the stomach and asked if he had done his research correctly. Turning away, he said, "That's why talentless people like you are always a problem." Hearing this, our protagonist seemed to fall into despair, feeling talentless and without individuality. This individuality is a special skill granted when someone awakens. It's usually called a unique skill or individuality. Of course, our protagonist is one of those awakened people. However, his awakened skill is individualistic, basically without talent. Since it's a skill that's not special, individualists are completely useless in the hunter industry, and the method he chose to survive was to latch onto hunters. In simpler terms, he would engage with and analyze monsters and provide strategies to defeat them. But today was a fateful day, and an unexpected situation occurred. Kong began to declare, "That damn bastard, I almost died because of him. If it wasn't for me, we would all be dead." Apparently, he didn't kill all the monsters because there was a very small spider behind him. However, this missing spider wasn't a normal one. It was an elite spider. Just explaining this elite monster thing, it's a phenomenon resulting from a common monster undergoing a double transformation. That is, it's a normal monster but twice as strong. If he had already clashed with common monsters, imagine the elite ones. At that moment, Kong began to think, "I'm going to die here. No, I need to survive. To survive, I need bait." And he already had the perfect bait in mind. At that moment, Kong kicked our protagonist right in the face. Of course, he was caught off guard. Kong even had the audacity to declare, "Since you did such poor research and things ended up like this, you should take responsibility for your actions." Wow, this is the guy who put a bunch of spiders at the beginning. To me, this guy is really weak. If I had to meet a guy like this on the street, he'd be screwed, individuality or not. I'm a bit angry. Before, with the normal monsters, our protagonist couldn't even move his legs. Now, lying on the ground in front of the elite monster, he couldn't even budge. Turning to the monster as it attacked, our protagonist started having that legendary flashback. In this memory, he was in the hospital beside a bed. He felt great anguish in his heart. On her deathbed, his mother asked him to take care of his sister. Remembering this, he began to reflect. "I can't die here. This is for my sister, my family. For this reason, I need to survive by any means necessary." Using the katana he had dropped on the ground, he started advancing towards the monster, shouting, "I will survive!" But before he could perform his heroic act, a huge explosion happened, throwing him backward. When he recovered, there was a blonde guy in front of him, with a hood and a red cape. Apparently, the source of that explosion was that guy. However, the explosions didn't end there. Another one happened behind them, but this time it was purple. From the explosion appeared a guy with white hair and tattoos on his body, shouting, "Where did you hide, you bastard?" Out of nowhere, he simply jumped, preparing to attack the blonde guy. And Blondie, of course, didn't just stand there. He leaped up as well. While the two fought, our protagonist was just like us, wondering, who are these two and why are they fighting? Their battle was high level, with their punches causing massive explosions. Seeing this level of power firsthand, he realized even the elite Arachne was trembling in fear. This meant these two were on a whole different level. The fight continued for a while, with them exchanging powerful blows, one landing a hit while the other dodged and vice versa. In the midst of this battle, our protagonist still tried to figure out who these two were. Suddenly, the white-haired guy managed to push off a wall and landed a kick right in Blondie's stomach. It hurt a lot as the impact alone damaged the entire cave they were in. At that moment, the white-haired guy started asking, "Where have you been hiding? Don't play dumb. I know it was you." Blondie told him to calm down, saying the fight wasn't over yet and he already wanted the reward. Out of nowhere, he began gathering a massive amount of power in his hand, forming it into a ball. The white-haired guy did the same. Simultaneously, they both attacked. The impact was immense. The white-haired guy asked, "You know if this continues, you'll be in danger, right?" But Blondie said it was fine. Turning to our protagonist, he said, "I already had a possibility open. Sorry for involving you, kid." The white-haired guy asked if he would really do it, and his answer was given with a huge circle, using both of their powers. This caused a massive explosion, and obviously, none of them would come out unscathed. The other person who wouldn't come out unscathed was our protagonist. However, directing his last words to the protagonist, he said, "I'll leave everything to you." With that, a shield protected our protagonist as the explosion happened. After so much fighting, explosion here and explosion there, the dungeon went silent. Our protagonist wondered, what the hell happened here? As he took a step back, he ended up stepping on a cell phone. It was very strange since he didn't remember dropping his phone. Suddenly, a new message appeared on the screen and some cards appeared, saying they were verifying the connection and that the administrator's succession had been completed. Strange figures appeared above our protagonist's head without him noticing. The phone showed a notification saying, "Welcome to GodTube, Administrator." A bit later, outside the dungeon, the group that had abandoned our protagonist was tired and out of breath. Kong declared, "Damn, even if I have bad luck, it must be reasonable. How is it possible to find an elite monster in a rank C dungeon?" But his punk friends started saying, "Wow, man, you're really smart. You're a genius for using Mayong as bait. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here now." Hearing this, Kong responded that there was a reason their channel was called No Strategy, because he used a lot of improvisation. At that moment, our protagonist arrived, surprising Kong because he thought our protagonist was dead. When he turned around, he saw a fist coming his way. Despite the poor quality of his channel, at least his reflexes as a rank B adventurer were very good. He managed to dodge our protagonist's punch and counterattacked, saying, "You think you can beat me, Mr. Xenagame? I don't know how you survive, but that's good. After all, it would be a pain to find another editor." Obviously, our protagonist, who wasn't dumb, asked if he was crazy, thinking he would go back to working with someone who tried to kill him. Kong responded, "Hey buddy, you cried and begged, saying your brother would die without the money for the medicine. I felt sorry for you and helped, but now you're acting like this? And besides, I lent you money." Our protagonist replied that he had a terrible habit of recording everything he saw. He even thought this habit was kinda stupid, but in the end, it was quite useful. Because of it, he managed to record a video of Kong abandoning him. If he edited and uploaded this video, it would surely get a lot of views. Kong, pretending to be sympathetic, declared that he should just kill him. After all, the dead don't talk. However, this didn't stop our protagonist, who declared that he might end up dead, but Kong would go to prison, and the channel he worked so hard on would disappear, which was almost like they would die together. But this intimidation didn't work on Kong. Looking at our protagonist with a sarcastic smile, he declared, "Hey, buddy Myung-soo, if you really use that video online, the one in danger wouldn't be you but your sister." He turned to his colleagues, saying he would look for another editor when he got home, and that they should leave now. Kang's declaration made our protagonist declare, "If you lay a finger on her, I won't be able to control myself." Returning home, our protagonist began to analyze the phone he found in the dungeon, wondering what this GodTube was. Could it be the channel of the gods? Because like METUBER was a place, a site where everyone could post videos for everyone in the world to watch. And of course, there were several categories since it was for the whole world. However, the most sought-after category of all was the hunter category. But on this GodTube, it was totally different. There was a video of a guy fighting Lucifer with a sacred sword forged by Hephaestus. A speed run of Thor battling a world-devouring serpent. It was crazy content, but among all these videos, they had one thing in common. They were all gods, folklore figures, heroes of legends. In short, the strongest of the strong. Seeing all this, our protagonist, Proda, voiced my thoughts exactly. Why the heck are gods making videos and posting them? And following this line of thought about gods and legendary heroes, who was was that blonde guy he met in the dungeon, and why did he give him that phone and leave? However, this was a lot of information to absorb. I paused to think for a bit. If gods are really making videos and posting them, they should have at least 100 million subscribers, right? After all, they are gods. And since he was bored with nothing else to do, he decided to watch one of these godly videos to see what it was like. He found a video and accidentally clicked the subscribe button, and suddenly a tag appeared saying that if he subscribed to Zhuge Liang's channel, he could learn the skill and rank up to S just by watching the video. This caught him by surprise, and another system screen appeared saying he had subscribed to Zhuge Liang's channel and could only subscribe to 3 channels, leaving 2 remaining. With this, he gained the skill insight, which surprised him greatly. Having a rank S skill was one thing, but an S+ rank? That didn't even exist back then. There were speculations that the unique skills of the 13 heroes who fought the Demon King might be in the S rank. Observing this, Prota thought, wait a minute, skills of this level just for subscribing and watching a video? This doesn't make sense. Seriously, Demi, just by subscribing to a channel, the guy is already strong? This is overpowered. Let's take it easy. Maybe the S rank skill wasn't a big deal because our protagonist didn't feel anything different. But since his skill was called Insight, perhaps it enhanced his observational abilities, making changes hard to notice. Abstract skills are challenging to understand with the naked eye. Browsing more videos on GodTube, he stumbled upon none other than the son of Zeus. To test if he would really gain any skill, he subscribed to his channel too. Again, the system notified that he had subscribed to Hercules' channel, leaving only 1 channel subscription remaining. He also gained a skill called Super Strength of rank SS. If he was surprised by the S+ rank skill, imagine SS. He was so shocked that he ended up smashing his desk. Prota destroyed his notebook. Then he realized he had truly gained the skill. Unlike Insight, he didn't see any immediate changes, at least not yet. And since Prota accidentally crushed his notebook, the system notified him that he had used Super Strength. His proficiency increased to 0.1%. Prota was left with his mouth agape, astonished at gaining Super Strength just by subscribing to a channel. Another thing he couldn't stop thinking about was what the heck GodTube was. As he tried to understand it, the system notified him that he had contemplated increasing his Insight proficiency by 0.1%. Prota began to wonder if reaching 100% proficiency would mean fully mastering the skill. Looking at Hercules' channel, he noticed a video titled Hercules Personal Training. With such a catchy title, of course, he clicked. The video started with many people from Olympus completely surprised. The reason was right in front of them. Hercules simply tore down one of Olympus' pillars, declaring how exciting and stimulating it was, all in a rather crazy manner. My brother, Hercules isn't right in the head, is he? He's nuts. And I probably wasn't the only one thinking this because Prota also thought he was completely bonkers. And taking advantage of this, who would want Hercules as their personal trainer? Like me, Prota didn't want that either. He even tried to unsubscribe, which made sense because Hercules' channel only had 1 subscriber. However, the system said he couldn't unsubscribe. Suddenly, Hercules broke the 4th wall, directly addressing Prota, calling him a little grasshopper. He could join the group but couldn't leave as he wished. Despite multiple attempts, Prota couldn't unsubscribe. The system notified him that once subscribed, he couldn't simply unsubscribe. With this, he had only 1 channel subscription left to break his limit. Oh, and of course, Hercules reminded our protagonist that tomorrow would be quad training day. At that moment, the jerk started calling Prota. Judging by his reaction, we could guess who it was. Obviously, it was none other than Kong. Prota asked what he wanted now. Kong even joked, saying he thought Prota would have blocked him but apparently hadn't. Prota, not wanting a lengthy conversation, told him to get to the point. Kong declared he was calling to talk business. Prota, already wanting to end the chat, asked why Kong thought they would work together again. Kong, pretending to be clueless, asked what he meant. They had been working together recently. Hearing this, Prota declared, "You better stop with these jokes and get to the point. I'm not enjoying these jokes, or I'll hang up." Yeah, that's the right way to treat this guy, giving him a hard time being the protagonist. Kong then revealed he had received a merger proposal from the SH group and asked if Prota would be interested in joining him. This SH group wasn't a small fry. It was the top-ranked company in Korea's business world. As the cherry on top, he recently heard that the group's granddaughter had awakened as a hunter with 2 S-rank skills. So, it probably comes from their intention to enter the world of hunters. Kong said exactly that, and that's why they're trying to merge with his channel to test the waters of the hunter world. That's where our protagonist, Prota, comes in, and assuming they were talking about the SH group, I'm pretty sure he'd be involved, right? But our protagonist responded exactly how we wanted him to, saying, "No way!" However, Kong is very persistent and declared, "But what if you earned $500 per video?" Well, then we'd still have to discuss the details. $500, right? Damn, because $500 isn't a small amount, I'd consider it. With that, Kong proposed again if he would join him or not. With a smile on his face, Prota declared he wouldn't. This made Kong disdainful since $500 was 10 times the normal rate. As it was a win-win situation, he asked how much Prota wanted per video. Prota responded, and obviously, upon hearing this, Kong got nervous, asking if Prota was crazy for demanding such an absurd amount. But in his mind, he wondered if Prota realized he was making a lot of money with the SH group. While discussing with Kong, Prota's perception ability started to increase. Prota then asked Kong a question that left him a bit confused. Why do you think the SH group is willing to work with you instead of using rank S hunters? The answer was simple. Since his granddaughter awakened as a hunter, not with one but with 2 rank S abilities. Would President Han Tae-san of the SH group sit quietly, handing over the hunter world like that? No, he would definitely start with the basics of hunting, even if the hunter world was at great risk. Talking about the basics of hunting, the answer lies in monster strategy. So far, his channel had accumulated 210,000 subscribers, and obviously, he made a lot of money with the videos thanks to the unique strategies Prota designed. Following this line of thought, it was obvious that President Heitai approached him not because of him but because of Prota's knowledge about monsters. Hearing this, Kong was shocked and asked, "Alright, but what if I pay you $5,000? With an impassive expression, Prota replied, "Didn't I say no? Man, I'm liking this protagonist. I hope he wipes the floor with this guy. I'm sure Kong will come back to bother him later, but I hope he remains brave." And Prota didn't stop there, saying that if it doesn't work, Kong should dive into his savings, take loans, and adjust his life. Or better yet, try to find another editor, as he said himself. In the end, Kong accepted Prota's proposal, and they were already inside a dungeon in Crank Bay. Prota, somewhat deaf, asked when the rest of the money would be deposited into his account. Kong replied that he'd send the rest once they finished everything there. At the same time, he received a message informing him that Han Chaerin had arrived. When they looked back, there she was, the granddaughter of the SH group, Han Chaerin. She was already angry, saying she would join the fray and that they should leave immediately. Of course, with all that beauty in front of him, Prota was surprised. Well, who wouldn't be, right? Even I was a bit surprised. But as they say, every rose has its thorns, and it seemed it was hard to get close to her. However, our Prota is calm and composed, thinking, well, as long as I get paid, it doesn't matter. I should just focus on my work. A bit later, deep in the dungeon, he encountered his first monster. While Prota set up the camera to make the video, Han asked if that was a troll. Taking the opportunity to appear knowledgeable, Kong said she was right, explaining that trolls are classified as B rank. Among their abilities, they possess a regenerative skill, and if they didn't attack strategically, they would waste their energy for nothing. Do you really think he would do something so confidently without knowing anything? Obviously not, right? This strategy was devised by our protagonist. The strategy he created, or rather, the one Prota created, was to prevent the troll's regeneration. To do this, they needed to completely tear its body apart, destroy its heart, and then decapitate it. Hearing this, Han immediately drew her sword and started chasing the troll. She followed the risky strategy, hitting the troll right in the heart and quickly decapitating it with a single strike. Seeing all this, both Prota and Kong were stunned, and she declared it was very easy. Damn, if you do it that quickly, you won't even have a video, it would be a speedrun like Thor. Kong, not wanting to miss another opportunity, began to declare, "Wow, even though I explained it crudely, you understood perfectly, as expected of an S-class hunter." She swung her sword to shed the blood, saying, "You flatter me too much." When she brandished the sword, Prota saw some kind of aura around her. He commented that he had heard of such a weapon, made by a Chaura named Aureliano, and asked the value of the weapon. She responded as if it were the most natural thing in the world, saying, "Oh, I don't know, about 20 billion won? Man, 20 billion is no small amount, right? But she's the granddaughter of the richest guy in Korea, so it must be easy for her." She kept saying she didn't fully understand the strategy yet, so they needed to hunt a few more trolls to grasp it better. An hour later, deeper in the dungeon, she declared that she now understood the strategy a bit, and since there seemed to be no more trolls, they should head back. Kong, again trying to suck up to her, politely thanked her for her hard work. She simply acknowledged his thanks, remaining impassive. Hearing her response in that tone made him boil with rage inside. He thought he had lost a great opportunity to partner with the SH group and blamed everything on our protagonist. However, our Prota isn't dumb and knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, the dungeon started shaking violently, like an earthquake. Kong thought, "Wow, now's my chance." Han asked what it could be, and Kong commented that it was probably an elite monster. However, judging by the thunderous sound, it wasn't just an elite monster. It was a boss monster. In front of them was an insane-looking monster. Bones sticking out, a broken horn, covered in blisters, a piece of rock on its shoulder, It was a mess. As Han was the strongest there, she had to protect the entire group. Seeing this situation, it felt like deja vu because Kang's group started fleeing again, leaving Han behind. Guys, Prota is going to deal with the SH group later. I can't wait to see it, because if you tell the old man, he'll protect the sister, right? I hope so. Since Han was a novice adventurer, she couldn't face a boss monster on her very first attack. She was thrown back, and it seemed like the boss heard us talking about Kang's group, as it even threw some rocks at them, knocking them out. However, it missed the group's leader. While running, Kang thought, SH group, Chiron. And although he thought he could escape this time, a monster simply appeared in front of him. Being a coward who hadn't trained with our Hercules, he froze in fear. Han, much braver than him, still had the kindness to defend him. But as we saw earlier, she wasn't strong enough and was thrown back again. Before she could get up, the monster was already attacking again. However, she dodged at the last second, climbed up its arm, and aimed for its neck. The attack had no effect, only angering the boss even more. Countered again, hitting her and slamming her into the ground. She managed to defend against the attack, but only barely. Seeing all this, our protagonist began to reflect. There's no way we can win this. Even though Han has 2 rank S abilities, she's just a beginner in the hunter world. For this reason, there's no way we can win. So, the only option I have in this situation is to run and leave Han behind. And that's it, folks. We've finished another video here. If you liked it, leave a lovely like and comment something like Hercules or Gang, so I know you enjoyed this series and I can bring more episodes. And since there are many chapters ahead, I've only done 3 chapters, but I've dragged on too much. Go straight to the next video. Actually, to be honest, I'm not sure how powerful this GodTube ability could be. But the one more shaken than our protagonist was Kang Du-cheol, who was running in complete desperation, leaving everything and everyone behind. And upon seeing that scene, the protagonist was overwhelmed with a whirlwind of emotions. It was because of Kang Du-cheol's investigation that they ended up in this situation. And this was happening for the second time, like a broken record playing the same tune over and over again. But this time, there were more baits than before. So, the only thought that crossed his mind was that he couldn't win. And of course, since he was in a desperate situation, human instinct told him one thing. Run as far as you can. After all, if you stayed there, you'd only face a meaningless death. But who cares about that? Money and fame? What good would that do if you were dead? After all, that's what our buddy Kang Du-cheol was craving. And even if our protagonist might die, if he ran away and left Han Chiron behind, he wouldn't be any different from that trash. So, he wouldn't abandon anyone. Using his SS rank ability that he got from our friend Hercules, he managed to push the monster's fist back, which obviously surprised Han. Since she was rank S and wouldn't be able to do such a feat, of course, she started wondering who he really was, and at that moment, a great spirit appeared behind our protagonist, or it could be called an illusion or an afterimage. Either way, that spirit wasn't a normal being, and it even seemed like our protagonist was getting the hang of his ability. And obviously, since he was in the middle of a battle, he didn't have time to contemplate his own abilities. At that moment, the boss attacked our protagonist, who successfully defended against the attack, which surprised both the boss and our protagonist. Taking advantage of the opening that the protagonist had created, Han advanced towards the boss, managing to thrust her spear into it. With another push, she managed to leap over its shoulder and sprint towards its head, slicing it off with just one blow. It seemed like everything would end, right? But no, when they asked the protagonist if it was really over, his insight ability was activated, and like a sixth sense or a voice talking to himself, it told him that something just didn't add up because the boss species was a type of mutation, and this mutation was a double that underwent multiple transformations. In this process, physical transformations were also inevitable, and with the insight ability, he foresaw this as the monster's head regenerated out of nowhere. Almost instantly, it managed to grab Han Chiron. Desperate, our protagonist thought, no, if Han Chiron dies, everything ends. But what can a weakling like me do? If all of the GodTube's abilities are real, and even if it's pathetic, if all these powers really belong to me, then that means, just for a brief moment, I can buy some time. Faced with that situation, Han told the protagonist to run away, but the protagonist didn't care and told her to aim for the heart first. With the help of our protagonist's super strength, she managed to break free from the boss's grasp. Quickly declaring that she understood, she began running towards the boss, unsure how she would hit the heart. But she didn't need to worry. Our protagonist was there to help her. For that reason, she only needed to run and trust him. At that moment, the boss turned his attention to Han Chiron, but he couldn't move. After all, our protagonist protagonist was holding the boss's hand with all his strength. With that, Han was able to run freely, climbing up the boss's arm and slicing it from top to bottom, hitting the heart dead on. With the insight ability activated, the protagonist had a quick realization. At best, he could hold on for half a second, so he didn't have much time to explain the orc's weaknesses in detail. So he just shouted that the orc had 2 hearts. This surprised Han, but she quickly composed herself, thinking that with her 6th sense, she should be able to understand what he meant. And in fact, she already had. She jumped onto the orc, landing right in the middle of the other side of its chest. As the orc lost its balance, the protagonist took the opportunity and leaped, shouting, "That's enough, die!" The system notified that his super strength ability had been temporarily boosted, and since she was already strong enough with this extra boost, he simply pierced through the orc with his fist. After being drenched in the boss's blood, our protagonist fell to the ground. Approaching him, Han questioned in her mind, "Who the hell is this guy?" Sometime later, in another place, specifically the hospital, our protagonist barely woke up to find someone next to him, and it was none other than Han Cha-Erin, which obviously surprised him. He questioned what she was doing there. She replied, "Oh, you were a mess inside the dungeon. I ended up bringing you to the hospital, so much so that your muscles were completely torn, even your ribs were broken, so I had to bring you here from the dungeon. But more importantly, how's your body? Oh, if it's not good, it will get much better soon." And since he didn't say anything, she placed her hand on his forehead to check for a fever. He probably didn't have one, not yet. To unravel the situation, she casually mentioned that they didn't even know each other's names yet. In fact, the protagonist already knew her name and introduced himself. This question left our protagonist a bit confused. After all, she was the one who admitted him to that hospital room, so she should have at least seen his information. And it seemed like she heard what he was thinking because she commented that she just wanted to hear it directly from him, which left our protagonist even more confused. And in his thoughts, he commented, "What happened? Did she read my mind? I know her 6th sense ability is an S-rank skill, and probably its effect isn't fraudulent." At this moment, Han started to say, "Yes, I know you just woke up and may be disoriented, but I have a proposal for you, Mr. Saiwu. It's a very simple proposal, actually. Would you consider becoming a member of my team?" The protagonist asked, "What do you mean by being a member of your team? Is it because of the orc boss you have?" Then she stated, "And what do you think about a salary of 1 billion? Judging by the protagonist's expression, he liked that a lot. But she added even more, "Additionally, we'll receive profits from the subproducts of monster hunting, equal to your contribution." In short, the protagonist would earn 1 billion won, plus a bonus from the monsters he hunted. Now, he could rest easy like never before, and the heart of our friend, colleague, sister, Han, was so big that it reminded him of his sister, who was suffering from a disease and was in one of her hospitals. If he joined her team, the hospital bill would be free. And obviously, my friends, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So he asked what he would need to do in return. Han then declared, "From now on, I will start hunting, so please choose strategies to deal with all the monsters I will encounter." At sunset, the protagonist began to wonder, did I decide this too quickly? And thinking back, the protagonist would respond to Han's offer. He simply said, no, he wouldn't accept the offer. He thought Han would at least get mad, but she didn't even ask the reason. She just accepted the protagonist's decision. But since he saved her life, she would at least cover his sister's medical expenses. However, that proposal Han made to our protagonist opened something in his mind. At first, he simply didn't believe in GodTube, because how could he gain abilities like insight and super strength just by subscribing to a channel where people make videos? However, GodTube is real. It's even strange to think that God would create channels and turn S-rank hunters into nothing more than obstacles. So, following this line of thought, there was no need for him to accept that offer. That said, he also wouldn't be able to cure Siola's incurable disease. For this reason, he needed to find another way. And the name of that disease, as I mentioned earlier, is hemophilia, which was contracted after the dungeon break that happened a long time ago. It's a very dangerous disease because it prevents the blood from clotting. Modern medicine has no cure for it. At best, all they can do is alleviate the symptoms. However, a new variable has just appeared. With GodTube, if he learns the abilities he has, he might be able to cure Siola's disease. However, the ingredients normally used in the treatment are absurdly expensive, which makes sense since it's an extremely rare disease. So, our protagonist declares, man, I'm going to need a lot of money. Should I start editing videos worth 50 million won? Speaking of videos, he started watching the last video he recorded on his laptop that had blown up before. He remembered that scene where Han said her sword was worth over 20 billion. Following this line of thought, our protagonist began to reflect in his mind. Should I start making equipment and selling it? If I did that, I could start earning hundreds of billions of won. However, I only have one subscription left. How annoying. If I want to subscribe to other channels. I need to become a member. And that costs more than 100 million won. What a ripoff. So, in this kind of situation, there's only one answer. I need to become a blacksmith and create weapons. And our protagonist found a really good channel, which was none other than Hephaestus, making a video about forging the stolen Mjolnir, trying to take on the challenge of upgrading it 99 times. And of course, our protagonist subscribed, right? After all, Hephaestus is the god's blacksmith. And by subscribing to the channel, he gained the divine blacksmithing ability SS rank. It was in the same category as Hercules' super strength. In the middle of the video, while performing the enchantments, Hephaestus began to say, whenever you're upgrading your weapon, remember this, you should not fear failure. Nowadays, people lack perseverance and determination. Be prepared to fail repeatedly so that this weapon may be destroyed. That way, you won't get frustrated. The protagonist initially started to say, why would I prepare to destroy my weapon? The gods are crazy. And after hearing these teachings from Hephaestus, his proficiency in divine blacksmithing increased by 0.1%, just like with his other abilities. The next day was a beautiful morning, and our protagonist couldn't stay in bed, so much so that even the nurses began to say he had improved a lot recently. According to the doctor who was treating him, his recovery was incredibly fast, considering he was a hunter. Because of this, he might be discharged the next day. Hearing this, the protagonist was even surprised because it was so quick. In reality, he wasn't just training to improve his health but to increase his proficiency in super strength. And the reason was very simple. If he used super strength too often, like last time, all his muscle fibers would be destroyed, so he shouldn't neglect his training. As he was thinking about this, his sister suddenly appeared behind him, and she commented, "Brother, are you getting discharged tomorrow?" The protagonist replied, "I think so," and that's exactly what happened. Then she continued, "Phew, when you were taken to the hospital, I was so worried about you because your condition seemed so serious. But brother, didn't they say you would have to stay hospitalized for at least a month? And you're already getting discharged after just 1 week." Hearing these words, the protagonist reflected in his mind, is she disappointed that I'm getting discharged before her? No, forget it. And the protagonist stated that she shouldn't neglect her treatment just because he wasn't there. There was no need for her to worry about the money for her expenses. Seola already knew she was receiving free treatment thanks to the considerations of her sister, Chaerin. Upon hearing this, our protagonist exclaimed, "Wait a minute, Sister Chaerin?" And Seolha added, "That's right, she asked me to call her sister. After all, she doesn't have any siblings, so she insisted that I be one for her." The brother shouted, "What? Han Chaerin? When? No. More importantly, when did you meet her?" Seolha replied, "Well, she even visits me at the hospital sometimes." The protagonist was like, "Wow, she comes to the hospital sometimes? Hey, why haven't I seen her?" Seolha explained that sometimes when he was exercising, Han would come to check on them both. In his thoughts, the protagonist started to question himself. She's already so busy with this sage hunter business, but she still comes to visit the hospital? She's really trying to recruit me, huh? But Seolha, who didn't know about this, thought that Han Chaerin liked our protagonist. However, the protagonist declared, "No, that's definitely not it." And Seolha insisted, "Oh, stop it, you're so popular. Even the nurses talk about you every day." The protagonist continued, all right, stop wasting time and hurry up, because I've got somewhere to be." When Seolha asked where he was going, he replied, "I'm going to make some money." And with a change of scene, in another place, our protagonist was in the best spot in that world to make money. It was none other than a dungeon. He was a little nervous since it was his first time hunting alone. However, since he was already there, the monsters were already coming his way. And since it was the first dungeon he had been in, it was obviously ranked F. There were only weak goblins there, but since they moved in groups, they attacked in groups. And that was really annoying. But in a 1v1, the protagonist fared better. The moment he punched one of the goblins, he simply obliterated it. Only then did he realize he was stronger than he had expected. So you want nothing, huh? You've got an SS rank ability, but you've been training against F rank animals. That's overkill, seriously. And of course, after seeing their comrade disintegrate in front of them, the goblins started trembling in fear. As a result, our protagonist just walked toward them, calmly declared, "Come on, it's time for round 2. Changing scenes again. In a place that seemed to be some kind of blacksmith's workshop, the protagonist simply tossed the goblins' bodies onto the floor and asked, "What can you make with this?" A man started shouting, "I asked for ingredients, not their scraps." The guy shouting was Seo Pomgang, the owner of that forge from the Smith family. As for the ingredients, he could let them slide because he was going to teach how to forge something. The first lesson our protagonist received was that hammering wasn't just about strength, and moreover, just because you had good materials didn't mean you could easily produce A rank or S rank equipment. The protagonist just watched, fascinated. The man in front of him had spent most of his youth learning metallurgy. And 20 years later, when he turned 40, he became an awakened A-rank with great skill in his class. Pomgang declared that he had shown enough, and now it was the protagonist's turn to try. As the protagonist prepared, Pomgang thought to himself, he said his name was Myung-soo, right? He didn't ask me to make his equipment or take him on as an apprentice. I even thought he would ask me to join his guild in exchange for making equipment for him. However, he didn't ask for any of that. He was the first person to ask me to lend him my forge, and since that was a bit unusual, I allowed it out of curiosity to see what his intentions were. These people today think metallurgy is too easy, like it's some kind of game. Took me 20 years to get here, and besides, that guy was just staring at his phone screen. I'm sure they watched some YouTube videos and think this is easy. So, obviously, he's doing it wrong, right? After some time, a woman with pink hair simply walked into the shop. Her name was Kim Soen, a representative of the Co-un company. Pomgang, looking at her, asked, "Ah, is that you, Soen?" She replied with a smile on her face, "Of course, it's me. Besides me, what other pretty girl would come to this shop and deal with all this sweat?" Pomgang declared that she could have placed the order with someone else, and there was no need for her to come to him every time. Hearing this, Soen responded, Hey, calm down. I'm doing business with the best blacksmith in Korea. Yes, my friend, so of course I should come in person." Pomgang replied, "Ah, as expected from a businesswoman, you even know how to do this now, huh?" She answered that she wasn't doing that. She was Kim Soen, the CEO of Un Trading, dealing only with the best products. Inside the bag she had brought were some of the materials she had listed and probably already sent to Pomgang beforehand. As she tried to mention something, the sound of hammering echoed in the background, and every time she tried to speak louder, the hammering grew louder until it reached a point where she exploded. "You idiot, can't you hammer any quieter? Can't you see there's an important conversation happening here?" But our protagonist ignored her completely. In her thoughts, she began to reflect, "My God, what a clueless kid." Looking at the swords, she realized he was still doing something very ridiculous. Taking a closer look at one of the protagonist's works, she asked if that guy had really made that as a weapon. Pomgang asked what she meant by that. She responded, "The blade is really weird, and the shape is so rough that it couldn't even be used." Hearing this, Pomgang commented, "Yes, it might look that way, but what if I told you that the materials used in this weapon were just leftovers from goblins and kobolds, and on top of that, the condition of the materials was the worst possible? And to add even more to that, imagine it was someone holding a hammer for the first time." Hearing all this, she asked, "Wait, did you accept him as a disciple?" He responded, "Disciple? What are you talking about? I just gave him some advice. Besides, when I saw him hammering, I couldn't believe it was really someone holding a hammer for the first time. It was something surprising, almost divine. Anyway, there's no one who could make a weapon like that with such materials. Plus, this guy even refused my offer to take him on as a disciple." And obviously, after hearing these words from Korea's best blacksmith, she had to pay a little more attention to our protagonist. Sometime later, the protagonist finished another weapon. At that moment, the system notified him that he had made equipment out of trash. As a result, his proficiency in divine blacksmithing increased by 0.4%. And of course, seeing that weapon in front of him, he started to wonder, "Okay, I managed to make a weapon out of trash, but how am I going to sell it?" But our protagonist didn't even have to think about it because the opportunity presented itself right behind him, in the form of a beautiful girl with pink hair. And to top it off, she was from Soen Company, which was a company primarily in the hunter industry, valuing trust and reliability above all else. So they were very well known in the hunter industry, and of course, as a large company, they only dealt with the best items. If they were thinking of selling that sword, she would buy it. Now, this seems a bit strange, right? Because she had said it was bad, and now it was good, and she wanted to buy it. So was the protagonist's sword good or bad? And with that, our protagonist, in magnate mode, starting to smell the money, asked, "So, how much can you pay for it?" And she responded, "I think I can pay 1,000,000 won." And so, after this first transaction between Soen and the protagonist, he started making weapons like crazy. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, Soen started screaming like a madwoman. The reason was very simple. Soen Company had signed a contract with the SH Group. The protagonist, hearing all that screaming, just said, "Oh, congratulations to you?" And she replied, "No, you're the one who truly deserves it. You met the delivery schedule, which was the foundation of trust. Plus, the quality of the equipment is perfect. If it weren't for you, I really wouldn't have been able to pull this off. So, if you want anything, just say the word. I'll get it for you no matter what." "Ah, of course, but first check your account." A bit confused, he took a look at his phone. Seeing the notification from the service, he thought he had charged less than he should have. And then he probably thought he wasn't earning enough. But Soen told him to check again to see see if the number he was looking at was wrong. And now, without looking at the notification screen, he saw the actual amount in his account. It was 284,242,001. Yes, I'm thinking that the protagonist needs to make more weapons than go hunting in this world. Huh? And seeing so much money in front of him, it was at that moment he became a slave to money. After calming down a bit, he started to reflect. Okay, now I have enough money to join as a member of GodTube. So I need to find someone who can teach me how to heal my sister. And the subscription for the 3 channels costs about 300 million per month. Given my current situation, I can only choose one. Oh, so guys, I haven't explained this yet, but probably his subscriptions aren't free. No, he has to pay 100 million per month. Now it makes sense, it's not free. So he sat in his chair thinking, should I do it or not? Should I do it or not? And in the end, he subscribed to another channel. Sometime later, Pomgang was irritated, saying that highly fragile materials are difficult to handle. So he had no choice but to minimize the polishing. In short, he was talking about something related to blacksmithing, some kind of work. And at that moment, Soen appeared. Already angry, Pomgang asked, "Why do you keep coming here?" And she simply replied, "Hey, I'm here because of Myung-soo." The protagonist said she arrived just in time because he had been waiting for her, which got her really excited. He handed her a paper, reminding her that she had said before that she could get everything he needed. So he asked if she could get those things for him. Looking at that list, she began to look a little surprised. Seeing her expression, the protagonist asked, "Is it very difficult to get this?" And she replied, "No, I can, but they're very expensive. Something like 300 million won, but it could even be reduced to 200 million. In other words, it's equivalent to 3 subscriptions on GodTube. And speaking of GodTube, he needed to master his skills through the channel's members. So the materials were necessary because he needed to practice to increase his proficiency. After subscribing to the Hwadua channel, he learned the divine medical skill. And since they were medical skills, increasing proficiency in those skills was already difficult because you don't know if you'll find or have the herbs you need. And if it weren't for Soen, the protagonist wouldn't have been able to find them. And speaking of her, she asked the protagonist if he wanted her to buy them or not. With much pain in his chest, he had to accept. After making that order, he started doing some mental calculations. He earned 284 million from selling his weapons, subtracting the 280 million that Soen would spend. So, in this case, he had 4 million left now. But at the end of the month, he had less than 100 million won left. In short, the protagonist urgently needed 96 million won. And even if he worked himself to the bone, making countless weapons, we're talking about millions of won, so it wouldn't be easy since he had to sell those weapons. But then, a light bulb went off in his mind. If GodTube exists and he's paying for GodTube, why not use METUBER to pay for GodTube? Switching scenes to a train, a person in a red shirt was complaining about having nothing to watch when suddenly a thumbnail caught their attention. It was a video teaching the strategy for defeating Ramadans, and when they opened the video, they saw several Ramadans. They looked like camouflaged hippos, but suddenly the video cut to a slightly different Ramadan, which was actually our protagonist cosplaying as a Ramadan. What the heck was that? Then he started talking. Did you know that Ramadan isn't actually a horse? Okay, I confess I don't know what joke this is supposed to be. Even the viewer didn't get what he was saying. But our protagonist continued. The monster you're seeing now is called Ramadan in Korean. In other countries, they're known as hippos. And as you can see, it looks like a hippo. The syllable ma in Rama is used in the Chinese character to describe the word horse. Wow, what a specific joke. I'd never have known that. But hey, now we know. So if someone suddenly starts talking about a hippo on a horse, we'll get it. Even the viewer was impressed because they didn't know that. And the protagonist continued giving his lesson, saying that hippos are part of the cow family. To be more specific, they belong to the order Artiodactyla. By the name, it might sound like some sort of spider family, but it's not. In reality, this order is specifically for even-toed ungulate animals. In other words, animals that have hooves. And of course, there's a deeper explanation, but he should probably stop there because the video would go straight to the abyss with such a boring explanation. Anyway, now it's time for the strategy against the Ramadans. First, you need a red cloth and then you just shake it. And actually, cows don't get agitated by the color red, if you're wondering. It just provokes them. Boy, keep your interest in that, huh? If anyone knows, comment whether that's true or not. I don't know if the protagonist is telling the truth, but if anyone knows, please leave it in the comments because I'm interested. And as our protagonist didn't just talk, he shook the cloth. What happened was exactly what he said. A bunch of Ramadans started charging at them. And here's where the second part of the strategy to defeat the Ramadans comes in. Simply punch them. Wow, after such a beautiful explanation, they just throw that in there? Oh no, my protagonist, it's not that simple. It might work for you, but think about your subscribers, man. And he really wanted to finish off the Ramadans Ramadans with punches, so much so that he ran towards them and simply jumped in the middle of them. After a while, a massacre occurred. All the Ramadans were dead, and the protagonist even gave a thumbs up to the camera. See how easy it is? And of course, seeing this, the viewer started to wonder, where is this easy, my friend? After that, the video was pretty much the protagonist demolishing the Ramadans. And while beating them, he said something very peculiar. Chicken ramen, roast chicken ramen, bacon ramen. And of course, like me, the viewer also wondered, what the heck is this guy doing, man? After killing all the hippos, he simply ended the video by saying, if you found the strategy useful, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And also click the bell to activate notifications. And of course, seeing this crazy strategy, everyone went nuts, thinking the protagonist was simply insane. But as the wise say, the insane are just people who think differently from the vast majority. And his first video was actually a success, reaching the impressive mark of 3,628 views and gaining 243 subscribers. And in fact, it might not have been just luck because the protagonist had planned all of this.